Hey guys! Today what I'm going to do is I would like to paint with you. I'm gonna paint some leaves. I did this one last night and I really like how it came out. I did a lot of experimentation. And basically today I want to do some work and kind of show you some of my process, show you some of the things I use and some of the things that I don't use when I'm painting, and basically just kind of talk while I'm painting. So let's get started. So first things first, we need reference material. And whenever we're doing something that we're drawing from life, we're probably going to want to work from a photo. So that's where my iPad comes in. I Google some photos. I do an image search and I find some pictures that I want to work from. I don't like to work just from one picture. There's two reasons for that. One of the reasons is because I don't like to make a direct copy of somebody's photo. The other one is you only get so much information in one photo. You're not going to get, a portion of a stem, or, you're not going to be able to see how the leaf splays out if you're just looking at a picture of one leaf. So I like to get this information. I like to get different information from different photos about a type of a plant, so I can know how I want to portray that plant. So I have more options for myself in terms of how I want to creatively show off that plant. Because some of these pictures are good, but, some of them I don't see the stem. I can't see what's going on with my iPad there. I can't see how the different leaves act together, so that's basically what I do for the purpose of this video today. I'm probably just going to I'm probably going to use this page because I don't have time to be digging around for several photos of a certain plant, but that is what I would do in general. Another thing that I always keep in mind is when I'm doing a search for images, for reference material, I absolutely hate the fact that, and it happens, that illustrations come up. I never work from other people's illustrations, and it is a pet peeve of mine when illustrations come up when I do an image search for something that I want to use for reference material for my own illustration. So that's just totally a subjective, random pet peeve of mine, especially when you look on Pinterest too. You see, sometimes you get images that make no sense to what you're looking for, or maybe it's a fabric of what you're looking for and not the actual plant. Sometimes you're going to get illustrations, and that just kind of bugs me because I want to draw it and I don't want that in my brain. So I avoid looking at other people's illustrations of whatever it is I'm drawing, and I would recommend doing the same thing to you. And another thing I like to do, one of the many reasons I like to look at the pictures, I like to see the colors on the leaf or on the reference material. We're just going to say leaf today because that's what we're looking at. And I like to see where it's darker, where it's lighter, what other colors come into play, because that way, when you want to go crazy with the color, you want to change things up, you have the information to know how colors and the textures play on the plant throughout the entire leaf, how it works. And then it's kind of like once you know the rules, you can break them type of thing, how you can sort of bump up against the boundaries of the actual reality of the leaf, and how you can kind of take creative license. So let's get started painting. I'm going to just put my iPad in a little stand over here. It's going to be off camera. So the first thing I want to show you, these paints are what I'm using today. This set of paints is the one I'm using today. This is the Kuretake. I will put the name of this set of paints in the description. These paints are awesome. I actually got these as a gift from my stepmom's sister, and I got this as a gift from her, and I started using them, and they were not like anything I had ever used before. They're not like gouache because they kind of can dry a little shiny. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little, don't look at the white on the letters, but if you look at the green and blue here, you can see a little bit of a shine. And they don't, if you sink it into the texture of the paper, you're not going to get that. But there are, for instance, see this leaf here? You can get a really cool little glossy shine with them. But they're opaque, but they're water-based. And they do pick up if you put water over them, but not as much as watercolor would. So They're really cool paints to use and they mix really beautifully with each other. So I really dig these paints a lot. I love them. The pans come, they're like full pans. You can get sets. There's a 36 pan set, they're full pans, and you can take the pans out, which is kind of cool. And you can also buy the pans individually. There are websites where you can buy pans. You can buy refill pans individually, which is totally cool, because I actually ran out of white first. I didn't know at the time that I could buy individual pans from different websites, so I just sort of filled this with a different watercolor tube paint. But when I run out of this, I will definitely be getting the white. I love the white. The white is super cool. It's very opaque. It really is very sticky. And by sticky, I don't mean like sticky tacky sticky. I mean, it really holds tight where you put it. And it dries really nice and opaque and a little sheen. And it's just very cool. Very cool paint. Okay, for this piece, I did some experimentation and you see that I used some white for the lettering. You could really use many different things for that. You could use a jelly roll pen. You could use paint. You could use fluid acrylic paint. You could use watercolor paint, but depending on whatever you use, it's either going to be able to get re-picked up again and be temporary if you paint over it, or it can be permanent. So I have this Bombay, Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay White India ink. I've had this for a really long time. I just started using it for this because I thought it would be cool, and I was looking for some white India ink that was waterproof. And this stuff is waterproof. You have to shake it really good. It settles in the bottom, the pigment. So you want to really make sure that it's all mixed in there. And actually, I know this is not what I should be doing, but I do like mix it up because I want to make sure that I get all the pigment when I'm using my pen with it. It really does work best with a pen rather than a brush when I'm doing really fine lines. But once it dries, it's pretty permanent. It's pretty waterproof. I can paint over it and get some really cool effects. I painted over it a little bit here, actually everywhere on here. Some of the places it was a little bit porous around it and it picked up a little of the paint I put over it, so I drew over it in white again, but for the most part it's pretty cool stuff. So I'm going to continue to use this. I think comparable would be the I think it's called like Proofing White or something by Dr. P.H. Martin, and then there's another one you can buy. But if you want to do a similar thing with your artwork, you want to get like a waterproof ink, not the kind of ink that will pick up again when you get it wet. So keep that in mind. How do I like to wet my watercolors? I love to use this little spritzer. This is a really cool way to just wet your watercolor, and I also love these, right? So these are just a little squeezy thing. So I also just wanted to show you really quickly some different things you can use with your watercolor. What's funny is I sort of have collected a bunch of these and I really don't use them. I used to use permanent masking medium a lot when I did pet portraiture. I don't use it really at all anymore. I might start again. Who knows? I keep these around because this is just all-purpose good to have for different things. This, I'll keep it until it's dried out, you know, until I can't use it anymore, and maybe I'll fool around with it at some point, but I don't really use it regularly. And this, for lifting, I actually just use droplets of water. So if I want to lift color, maybe I will demonstrate that today. I haven't used this in so long, I don't even remember how well it works or not. I don't use it. I use water to lift with now. I probably always have, actually. I thought I would probably try this at one point, and I guess it probably didn't work any better than my regular method. I used to use this stuff all the time, which is kind of hilarious because this is probably the least used medium that watercolor artists would use, I guess, but I used to use this a lot. And as you can see, it's all dried out now, so. All right, so let's start painting. Let's paint some leaves, shall we? I'm gonna wet my brush. So what I like to do is just put a little bit of water in my little pans here. Not much, just some. This is my favorite. I use this all the time for so many different things. It's a great color. Such an awesome color. And one of the things about this Kuretake set of watercolors is some of the darker colors, you really can't tell what they are, and you should really have some swatches. And I don't have that. I never did that, but I just sort of get used to them and then remember what's what after a while. So I like to have paper on the table that I'm working on so I can have some place to sort of test out my colors. And I always want to have some place where I can mix my paints. Today, what I'm using to do that is just this top of this palette here. I just use that. I'll mix up some colors. I want to mix my colors together. One other thing I like to do is to have a little tiny dish of water next to my painting. It just makes it easier for me because you gotta work fast with watercolor and, you know, every second kind of counts. So it's nice to have your water quickly accessible when you need it. People never talk about how challenging it is to paint on camera. It's really not easy. You have to sort of learn how to do it. And, you know, it takes time to figure it out. And I think it's like a constantly figuring out different methods to do it effectively or to do it easier or better. Personally, I like to work really close to my art. Like my head is really close to it. So that can make things difficult if there's a camera above me, you know, but I try to work it out. Kind of cool sometimes to mix your colors directly on the painting. Other times I like to mix it on the palette. I generally don't like to use straight colors, straight from the pan. Like just color one thing, one color, that just doesn't work for me. So here I'm just sort of experimenting. So I'm going to show you, I know that a lot of people use salt to create some cool effects with watercolor. I sometimes just like to use my spritzer because it can do very similar. And this is also Secret Weapon hairdryer. Okay, so let's try the pickup technique now. I'm going to show you how I like to pick up pigment to make highlights with just water. So if I do, I'm a lefty and I hate having stuff around my left arm, and I have all this stuff over here. So I'm just going to demo this for you so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So it's kind of an art to this, obviously. There's an art to this, to doing this. Basically, you want to have enough water on your brush that you can drag it pretty much the full length if possible. And then you want to pick it up at just the right time. It's kind of weird. Like sometimes it comes out better than other times, you know what I mean? But you know, if you get it just right, then you can just pick it up just perfect. So you see how I'm doing this? And I like this method a lot. I've used it all the time for years and years and years and years. It's so simple and you don't need anything special to do it, but you can also get some really cool subtle effects doing these highlights this way. And you don't have to use like white to get your highlight, which is really awesome sometimes, right? Because that's when we want to use it, but you don't always want to have that. Sometimes you want it to be like more subtle, more texture, like a more natural texture. And this is a really cool way to get that. So it's working out really well with this leaf. You can get some really nice thin lines too if you're just like super careful. It's kind of, obviously I can't be so careful when I'm doing this on camera. It's just not really possible when you're recording. I mean, some people are really good at doing it, but talking and doing it at the same time, that is cool. So now we're gonna outline. I'm gonna just hit this with the dryer really quick. Oh, I can't, my dryer's overheated. Okay, all right, that's dry enough, I think. So I'm gonna just do like, I'll show you what I'm gonna do. So I'm trying to get a nice outline. The trick is to have it transparent enough that it's like adding depth, but that I'm not dragging up the paint underneath of it. That's my goal here. Okay, so now you can do the bottom, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add depth in between these crevices with this dark blue color and see how that works. So I typically, unless using black is part of my strategy in my picture, I don't like to use actual black paint. Whoops. Okay, so we messed up. Just gonna go over this and pick this up. Messed up. That's okay. Let's do something crazy. That's also something I like to do. I love to pick up color with paper towel. It's just something I do. I don't know why, I just like to. All right, so now I want to add some sort of highlighty situations here. Something where you can see more depth in the leaf, like actual texture on the leaf. So I'm just gonna do this. Just picking it up. That's kind of cool, right? Got a little cool little ghosty stuff in the corner there. So this gives a really nice texture to the leaf. See, and it's just water. It's just water. You just gotta pick it up like right before it gets all sinky, right? Right before it oversaturates the paint, and you get this really cool effect that looks like natural leaf, right? And actually what I love is that this is like a blue-green here. And then this is like a yellow green, which is actually really coincides with nature, right? So one thing that's kind of, I think, needs a little help is the tip. So I'm actually gonna color on I'm gonna put some water on the tip and pick up, because it's a little too green for me. I don't think it looks au naturel. So let's just pick up there. And then we're gonna add a little bit of that yellow green there, because that's gonna help. I think maybe some yellow actually. Maybe a little bit of, not straight yellow, we're gonna mix this, but a little yellow might be good because it'll kind of echo. You know how leaves get a little, they get a little dried out on the edges and they're a different color? Let's give that a shot and see how that works. Kind of cool, right? Okay, so that's working out. And you know what else we could do? Like maybe put a little on. I love to do a little bit of asymmetrical balance. So maybe we do a little bit just like over here, right? And then we're gonna spray it. We're gonna let this set. I'm gonna air dry it, blow dry it. Then we're gonna spray it a little and get some of that cool texture effects. All right, so I blow dried. Now I'm gonna take my spritzer again and I'm just gonna spritz and pick up like I did before and see where that takes me. So it's definitely helped. Let me do a little more here. It's definitely, oh, there we go. That's kind of cool. I like how this has come out. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just try and pick up a little more right in between where the highlight would be. This isn't really working out so good. That's okay. So there's our leaf. We colored it in. We did some outline. We did some cool texture effects with only water, which is super cool, right? Water and paper towel. Oh, and here's another tip. Sometimes you can use the paper towel as a texture element on your painting. I do this all the time. Pick it up and then you get some cool lines and stuff. You can actually experiment with different paper towels to do this. And you can get some cool stuff going on. You can get some cool little texture in there. I also really like to use just a regular tissue to blot when I don't want any trouble with my blotting paper because it's super soft. You can make it, you can form it into any little ball you want. You can create texture if you want. You don't have to. Tissue paper works great. So I hope this has been fun for you today. I hope that I helped you get a couple new tips and tricks. Let's not look at this leaf. Let's look at that leaf. Have a great day. Bye.